comic books in general, the whole universe is starting to implode on everybody. We're taking over the market here. We have movies, we have TVs, animations, video games. How do you keep up with all this at once while doing your own thing?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, first of all, like, no, it's a thrill to be here. Like, so don't be, don't geek out or whatever. I geek out like getting to be on here. But it's a weird balance. I mean, I was telling you guys before we started recording, like, I am literally sitting out in my yard because I'm like monitoring my baby who's asleep in his crib. And if he wakes up, like, I'll have to run up there and interview. But the thing that's so, I mean, this is all I've wanted to do since I was, 8, 9 years old. I wanted to be a comic book writer, artist, artist predominantly. I like had a portfolio all the way through college, and I just realized that wasn't good enough and at art, and wound up going into writing, and then found my way back in through writing kind of superhero stories for literary magazines and stuff. And so the job, it's a lot. Like right now I have more work than I've ever had, but I'm happier than I've ever been too.
That's awesome.
Because I love being at DC, and it was a pleasure. I mean, it was such an honor and a thrill to write Batman and Justice League, and I mean, those are dream jobs, and I never took them as anything less. But being able to also own your own stuff and make stuff with the people that you've made relationships with over the years, like Greg Capullo and Francis Manapul and Francesco Francavilla and Jock, that there's an extra joy in that, because you're just kind of building stuff from the ground up at your own risk, but really mostly at your own kind of, excitement. And so I love it, and DC, like I talk to Marie, who runs DC, who's, EIC over there all the time, and Jim and I talk, and Jim Lee and Marvel, I'm, friendly with. So it's not like, oh, superhero comics, I don't want to do that. It's more just like, after 10 years in superhero comics, the idea of taking some time to do stuff that's my stuff with my co-creators and co-owned with them feels important,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's every kid's dream, right? Like, I'm a huge Superman fan. Superman Unchained was amazing. We just saw you on DC Fandom talking about Court of Owls, obviously with Greg, which was, I mean, we could talk about that stuff there you go. Just talk about that stuff forever, right? But I think Frank and myself will also say, like, as much as I love Superman, Batman, he loves Spider-Man, right? It's also, we have our ideas and our dreams. I mean, I'm Nighthawk plays for a reason. I have this whole idea and this vision of a Nighthawk character, even though there is Nighthawks already. But you're taking that. You started, like you said, you worked with Marvel, you worked with DC, and now you're, going above and beyond with these 8 books above everything else that you've done in the past with your own stories. So with that, with Comixology, with the Scott Snyder originals, Scott-tober going back to being October. When you think of these 8 that are out there, 3 that are currently out there right now that you can go and own on Amazon right now for free with Amazon Prime through Kindle, we have Demons, Clear, and Night of Ghouls. There's still, quick math, 8, 7, 5 more to come. How did these stories come about? Where did they come from? Is it a collaboration with these other artists and people that you've worked with? How do they come about?
Yeah, it really is. I'm gonna move to this table because I feel like,
Okay.
You're good. You're good.
Now that I feel like my kid is like definitely asleep, I can relax a little bit. I was like right near the house in case I had to like run inside. But it's a full collaboration. I mean, none of them were like, I wrote a script or a story or had an idea and I want to go to an artist and be like, can you draw this? It was building up relationships with these artists over the years and saying, hey, if we ever get a chance to do something together, what would you like to do for yourself?
That's awesome.
So for example, we have Demons with Greg Capullo, was me and Greg talking about all the fun he had on Spawn, drawing monsters, drawing demons, and me talking about like my fears for my kids about this moment in time when it feels like everything is kind of stacked against this generation, and kind of, can we make a story where it feels like a young character enters a mythology they didn't know existed, but reflects all the things they're afraid of, that there isn't enough good stuff left for her generation of heroes to beat, the evil force in that world, that their parents have made all these mistakes, all this stuff. Like, is there a way to do both, like make it fun and this kind of this over the top bombastic great thing that we love to do, that's like reflective of all the kind of action and heavy fisted gory things, but also like a message, to our kids and that. And so that's how We Have Demons came about. Like, Clear came about because Francis Manipal and his wife and his daughter came to stay with me and my wife and kids when he came to New York Comic Con about 3-4 years ago. And we just all got along, and they stayed for a few days. And I was like, "What, we got to do something together." And he was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And I was like, "What are your biggest fears for your kids?" And we were talking about how nowadays, like, they're exposed to all these kind of like algorithmic things, whether it's, innocent like Spotify, or it's like Google or Amazon, where there's a value to having systems that give you more of what you like. But when you look at it on a sort of 30,000 foot level, I think the big fear is that it's insulating them in individual bubbles about where they're surrounded by things that just reaffirm things they already believe in, or because information, like, you go to Google or you go to news sites, and the first thing that pops up is stuff that you already, you believe in and you like.
Yeah.
And so that's where Clear came from, was like us talking about that and me saying, well, what if we built a sci-fi version of an extension of that? And similarly, Night of the Ghoul was me and Francesco talking about in 2016, 2017, feeling like, God, the world is so crazy right now. Are you like falling back in love with all these classic monster movies? And he's like, dude, I watched like like Creatures from the Black Lagoon the other night. And I was like, let's make up a new classic monster, but one that speaks to this moment. And we'll couch it in this whole like classic horror genre stuff. And so each project is really a collaboration with a co-creator, organically. Like, it was never like, let me write something and hand it to an artist. It was always like, hey, if we're going to actually leave DC Marvel and do stuff on our own, let's make sure it's stuff we both love and want to make something, that speaks to both of us.
So really, quick continuation question then. How long, in your mind, how long has this idea been around to start going off on your own and thinking about this, creating your own Blue Jacket Press? Where it's been a while, obviously, right?
Yeah, so it's been at least about 5 years. I started the company myself as a way of incorporating about 5-6 years ago. So I had it in existence. And then I started thinking about, well, what if I made books through it in about 2015, 2016? And then I started talking to artists, like, seriously, like Francesco was probably the first, and then Francis, and then Greg, because Greg is funny. Greg is like, he does not like to think about what he's doing next until he's almost done with what he's working on. So Greg is like the last conversation, only because he's like, you don't want to bother him until he's like one issue away from finishing something. He's very like, I finish this and then I decide. I'm like, but we could decide now, 2 years before. It's like, no. So yeah. So it began quite a few years ago, and I really set this date for myself in my head where I was like, 10 years into DC, I'd like to try my own stuff for at least a year and a half. And if it works out, maybe longer, if not, whatever. And then Comixology and Image, like, things worked out well. So it'll probably be, a couple years before I go back to DC or Marvel. I will. Like, I have an idea for the Punisher. I have an idea for Punisher, Wolverine, Ghost Rider, Captain America thing, and Hulk, all of this. Like, so I want to do it, and I've talked to them about it. It's more just, I'd like to take a little breather and see how this thing goes, like doing my own stuff with co-creators that own stuff with me, and we're just kind of building like a treehouse.
Yeah.